Chapter 1. The atrium of the hospital buzzed with the soft hum of eager voices and echoing footsteps. Students in crisp, white coats moved through the halls, some flipping through clipboards, others nervously checking their phones. This was the day they would officially submit their mentorship requests, the step that would determine who would guide them for the rest of their rotation year. Kennedi Rhodes stood near the sign-in table, her heels clicking softly on the gleaming floor as she filled out her preference form. Her pen paused at the question that read, "Top choice for surgical mentor?" She didn't hesitate. Dr. Elias Monroe. The name looked too neat on the page. Ordinary, but what she'd heard about him was anything but. Dr. Monroe, one of the other students behind her, scoffed quietly. "He's brilliant, but good luck. He hasn't picked a student in 2 semesters. Kennedi smirked to herself. "Then it's time he meets me," she murmured, folding her form and handing it to the coordinator. She followed the hallway signs toward the mentor introduction room. The long conference hall had been converted into a space where doctors sat at various stations while students waited in line for a few minutes of FaceTime with each. And then she saw him. Seated at the far end of the room, alone, poised, and surrounded by an air of quiet command, was Dr. Elias Monroe. Even seated, he radiated authority. His button-down shirt stretched slightly over his chest beneath a dark gray coat, his tie knotted sharp, and his low-fade haircut perfectly lined. His face was handsome in a stern, unreadable way. 30 seconds of eye contact with him could unravel most people's nerves. Kennedi took a breath, tugged lightly at the sleeves of her white coat, and smoothed her curls behind one ear. Then she stepped in a line. When her turn came, she stepped forward with a confident but respectful smile. "Good morning, Dr. Monroe. I'm Kennedi Rhodes." Elias looked up from a file in front of him, eyes narrowing slightly as he took in the woman now standing before him. His gaze was quick, measured, but something lingered in the pause between glances. She was young, poised, and far too captivating for his peace of mind. "Miss Rhodes," he said, voice calm and deep. "Why do you want me to mentor you?" He didn't offer a handshake, didn't smile, just folded his hands and waited. Kennedi took a slight step forward, folding her own hands in front of her. "Because I want to be better than good," she said. "I want to be great. And from everything I've studied about your techniques, your research, your surgical outcomes, you don't settle for anything less than great either." Elias tilted his head slightly, expression unreadable. She went on. "You performed one of the first minimally invasive reconstructions on a pediatric aortic arch. You've saved lives that others gave up on. I've watched your surgical conference lectures more times than I'd like to admit. You're the kind of surgeon I want to be, not just precise, but innovative. Fearless. I think I learned more from you than anyone else in this hospital." For the first time, Elias's mouth twitched. The smallest hint of amusement, or was it intrigue? "I see," he said evenly. Kennedi bit the inside of her cheek. He didn't give much. "You understand I don't take students lightly," he said after a pause. "You may be enthusiastic now, but this kind of mentorship comes with expectations, rigor, intensity, discipline. I'm ready for all of it," she replied without missing a beat. "I want to earn it." Elias studied her. Not her words, but her posture, her conviction, and, annoyingly, the curve of her lips when she smiled just enough to be disarming. "Thank you for your time, Miss Rhodes," he said, voice clipped again as he looked back down at his file. "Next." Just like that. "Dismissed." Kennedi blinked once, then nodded, hiding the small swell of disappointment as she stepped away. Maybe she'd come on too strong. Or maybe the rumors were true. He didn't choose anyone anymore. Still, something about the way he'd looked at her. It didn't feel like a no. A few weeks later, Kennedi sat in the quiet corner of her bedroom, her laptop open as she worked through surgical prep notes. A notification pinged. Subject: mentorship confirmation, Department of Surgery. She clicked it without thinking. "Congratulations, Ms. Kennedi Rhodes. You have been selected as the mentee of Dr. Elias Monroe for your surgical rotation. Report to Operating Room C on Monday at 6:30 a.m. for orientation." She blinked at the screen. Then again, her breath caught in her throat. A grin spread slowly across her lips. Holy shit. She pressed her hand to her chest and leaned back in her chair, heart racing. He picked her. It's the day of orientation. Kennedy crossed her legs slowly, like she knew he was watching, even though he hadn't looked at her once since she walked in. Her notepad sat on her lap, untouched, her long fingers resting on the edge like she was ready to write, even though she couldn't concentrate on a single damn thing. What was the point? All she could think about was the man sitting across the desk. That deep-ass voice. That face. That build. Dr. Elias Monroe was all the distraction she never asked for, but couldn't stop craving the second he opened his mouth. He didn't look like any doctor she'd met before. Nah, he looked like someone who'd broken hearts and stitched bodies back together without sweat. His dark chocolate skin had this clean, velvet-smooth tone, like it stayed moisturized on principle. His fade was tight, temples grayed just enough to scream, grown man, with waves that still brushed the back of his neck. He had a short, salt and pepper beard shaped so sharp it could cut glass, lips full and usually pressed in a line like he'd rather be anywhere else. Elias looked like he had grown man problems, mortgages, courtroom drama, old secrets, and still managed to keep his suits custom fitted. His body filled that black button up like it was tailored just for him. Broad chest, thick arms that pushed against the sleeves, and shoulders that didn't slouch for anybody. At 6 feet 3 inches, he moved with a slow precision, like he was always calculating 10 steps ahead. But what pulled her in, more than anything, was the trimming in his right hand. Kennedy had read about it before she ever stepped foot in his office. Elias Monroe, once a world-class trauma surgeon, was taken out by a nerve injury, now stuck teaching med students who only knew him by his reputation. That hand, scarred, curled slightly inwards, never used, was a reminder. A weakness he didn't like people noticing. "This is a serious space, Miss Rhodes," Elias said, eyes still locked on a folder in front of him. His voice, deep, didn't raise, didn't rush. It just slid under your skin and stayed there. "If you're here to be cute, find another internship." Kennedy tilted her head slightly, lips curling. "I didn't come here to be cute, Dr. Monroe," she said, her tone sweet with just enough smoke to tease. "I came to learn from the best." She knew how she looked. Light brown skin, warm undertones, soft and smooth. Her curls were up in a high, neat bun with 2 wispy strands left loose in the front, just enough to frame her face. Hazel brown eyes lined in soft gold shimmer, full lips painted in wine-red gloss. At 5 feet 4 inches, she had curves that didn't need explaining, hips for days, a waist that dipped just right, thighs pressed firm against the edge of the chair. She wore her confidence the same way she wore her blouse, tight in the right places, buttoned just enough to stay professional, but open enough to make a man wonder. That's when he looked up, brief but precise. His eyes met hers, sharp and slate-colored with dark lashes that didn't soften a damn thing. They flicked down once, one quick pass over the swell of her chest, the slope of her hips, and back up again like it didn't faze him. But it did. She saw it, felt it. That flicker of heat he tried to bury under discipline. "You'll shadow me Mondays through Friday. I will let you have weekends off." "I know young people like to party on weekends," he said flatly. "Round start at 7 sharp. Don't be late. Don't ask dumb questions. Bring your coat." She scribbled something down on the notepad just to keep her hands busy. Her mind was already elsewhere, wrapped up in the way his voice made her thighs press a little tighter. The way his silence dared her to keep pushing. He didn't flirt, didn't smile, didn't lean in. That's what made him dangerous. That's what made her want him. Elias stood then, slow, deliberate. He moved like a man who hated being watched, like someone who'd practiced hiding pain behind posture. He favored his left side, but his presence still filled the room. That expensive cologne followed him. Sandalwood, musk, dark amber. It hit her like a memory she hadn't made yet. "Are you married, Dr. Monroe?" she asked casually, without looking up from her notepad. She said it like it didn't matter. But it did. He paused. The kind of pause that spoke louder than a yes. "I have boundaries and rules when it comes to working together. Rule number 1, no personal questions," he said, locking eyes with her. "One I suggest you learn to respect." Her lips parted just a little. Not from shock, but from the way he said it. Low, controlled, dangerous. He wasn't telling her no. He was daring her to try him. Kennedi rose from her chair, slow and graceful. She smoothed her skirt, adjusted the top of her blouse, and let her eyes meet his one last time before she stepped back. 7 sharp, she said with a little smirk, heading toward the door. And don't worry, Dr. Monroe. I don't cross boundaries. She didn't have to see his face to know he was watching her leave. The click of her heels on the tile echoed with confidence. Each step, a promise. He thought he could keep it professional, but the rules would save them. But that tension between them, it was already breathing, and Kennedi had all semester to make it beg. The door clicked shut, but the heat she left behind lingered. Elias didn't move at first, just sat there behind his desk, still as stone, eyes trained on the edge of the door like it might open again and tempt him all over. His jaw clenched as his gaze dropped to his right hand, curled, stiff, resting useless on the desktop like a ghost of who he used to be. She was bold, too bold, beautiful, young, full of mouth and ambition. Exactly the type he should have dismissed on sight. And yet here he was, heart pacing steadily beneath the linen of his shirt, mind spiraling places it had no business going. His slacks felt just a little tighter than they had when he sat down. Elias exhaled through his nose and sat back in his chair, rubbing the heel of his good hand over his beard. Boundaries, he muttered to himself, like saying it out loud might reset something inside him. Then his phone buzzed. He sighed and picked it up without checking the screen. He already knew who it was. Yeah, he answered. Elias. His wife's voice poured through the speaker, smooth and clipped like every word she spoke had been measured first. Will you be home for dinner, or should I leave a plate? He didn't answer right away. His gaze dropped to the gold indentation still etched into his skin where a wedding band used to sit. He'd stopped wearing it over a year ago. Yvonne hadn't asked why. She just stopped wearing hers too. I'll be at the hospital late, he said, voice even. Rounds and lecture prep. A beat of silence. Then, right. Click. She hung up before he could say anything else. He set the phone down face first and leaned back, eyes slipping shut. The faint scent of her, of Kennedi, still clung to the room. Vanilla and something floral. Something young. That smell shouldn't have made his thoughts drift, but it did. Made his jaw tighten, made his hand curl into a fist. Across town, Kennedi tossed her tote bag on the couch and peeled off her heels with a soft groan. Her roommate, Nia, was posted on the kitchen counter in sky blue scrubs, legs swinging, face buried in her pharmacology textbook with a smoothie in hand. Nia glanced up, side-eyeing her without lifting her head. Girl, you look like a lawyer who just won custody of her ex's soul. Kennedi laughed, walking barefoot across the hardwood. It's this damn pencil skirt. Tight as hell. You've been tight all week. Spill it. Kennedi slid onto the couch, grabbing the elastic from her bun and letting her curls fall around her shoulders. So, I got my placement. Nia perked up. Where? Don't tell me it's Dr. Nduku again. He be spittin' when he talk. Worse, Kennedi said with a grin. I'm shadowing Elias Monroe. Nia blinked. Wait, Elias Monroe? Fine as hell? Looks like he teach surgery and pull triggers on weekends. Kennedi licked her lips. MHM. That one. No. Nope. That man is a lawsuit wrapped in silk ties. You better behave. Kennedi smirked, leaning her head back against the couch. I just said I was shadowing him. You're the one making it sound nasty. Nia narrowed her eyes. You got that look. What look? That I touched the stove and I liked it look. Kennedi smirks. Stop reading me. The next morning, 6:55 a.m. sharp, Kennedi stepped off the elevator and onto the surgical floor. Her white coat fit snug over her hips. The sleeves rolled just enough to show her small wrists and manicured hands. Her curls were back in her signature bun, laid and pinned, and her lip gloss had just enough shine to catch light. She walked with intention, heels softer today, flats but still cute. Around her neck, her student badge bounced gently against her chest. She carried herself like she knew all eyes were on her. And one pair definitely was. Elias stood down the hall, leaning slightly against the nurse's station, chart in hand. He looked damn near unreadable, charcoal slacks, fresh navy dress shirt with sleeves rolled up, and a silk tie. His stethoscope hung across his shoulders like a warning sign. When she walked into his periphery, he stiffened for half a second, just long enough for her to notice. He didn't say anything, just nodded once, barely acknowledging her as she approached. Kennedy's lips twitched. She knew that look, knew what it meant when a man pretended he didn't see her. She stood beside him, close enough that her perfume whispered in his direction. "Morning, Dr. Monroe," she said sweetly. He didn't look up. "Miss Rhodes." But his jaw flexed, and she saw it. The hallway was too quiet for 7 a.m. monitors beeped behind thick doors. The air smelled like bleach and stale coffee, and fluorescent lights buzzed overhead with the kind of hum that made your brain itch. Kennedy stood just behind Dr. Monroe as he charted outside the first patient's room, eyes flicking over vitals and notes in the electronic system. He hadn't said more than 3 words since she met him downstairs. She didn't mind. His silence wasn't cold. It was control. "Read me the history," he said finally, not looking at her. She stepped closer to read, over his shoulders so broad the coat couldn't quite hide the stretch beneath it. "Male, 62. Post-op recovery from subtotal colectomy. History of hypertension, Crohn's disease. Mild fever overnight, low-grade leukocytosis. Vitals stabilized this morning. Scheduled for drain removal at 6 p.m. Elias gave a short nod. "Good." Then he turned toward the door. At the same time, she shifted forward. Her shoulder brushed against his chest. The contact was brief, but electric. Elias stilled, just enough for her to feel the moment land between them like a held breath. His chest was warm, solid, close enough for her to smell the cedar under his cologne. For a split second, neither of them moved. His eyes dropped, not far, just to her mouth, before he blinked it away and stepped back like the floor might burn. "Try not to hover," he said quietly, before pushing the door open. Inside, Mr. Grant was already sitting up in bed, eyes on the television mounted to the wall where the news played with low volume. His salt and pepper beard was patchy and his hospital gown hung off his shoulders, but he grinned wide when they entered. "Well, damn," he rasped. "I didn't know interns looked like this now." Elias sighed under his breath. Kennedy smiled, playing it off with charm. "Morning, Mr. Grant. Don't let the gown fool you. You're not that slick." He laughed, which turned into a cough. "Feisty. I like her." "Vitals look good," Elias cut in, voice smooth but laced with warning. "We'll check your drain site and get a few labs. If things continue trending well, we'll downgrade you to Med SURG. Mr. Grant nodded, still grinning. "Doc, you ever smile? You got this beautiful girl following you around, and you just frowning. That's criminal." Elias didn't flinch, just leaned in to examine the drain site, his voice clipped. "Lift your gown." Kennedy stood to the side, gloved and focused, but she could feel his tension, could see how tightly he gripped the pen light in his hand. It wasn't the patient's comment. Not really. It was the way it rang true in a space where truth wasn't supposed to leak. After they finished checking the site, Elias peeled off his gloves and turned toward the door without waiting for her. Kennedy stayed behind just a second longer, giving Mr. Grant a small nod. "She's trouble, Doc," the patient said low. "But you already knew that, huh?" Out in the hallway, Elias pressed a thumb and 2 fingers to the bridge of his nose, breathing slowly. His hand trembled slightly as he lowered it. Kennedy stepped out behind him, the door shutting quietly between them and the patient. "Are you okay?" she asked, voice softer now. He didn't answer right away. "Miss Rhodes, you can call me Kennedy," she said, too quickly. "No," he said, his voice tighter now. "I can't." That should have been the end of it. But the way he said it, it wasn't resistance. It was restraint. His eyes flicked to hers and held. Heavy, heated, and for the first time, Kennedy saw it, how tightly wounded he really was. How the silence wasn't distance. It was defense. A beat passed, then another. His phone buzzed in his coat pocket. He didn't check it, just adjusted the stethoscope around his neck and turned back toward the next patient room. "Let's move." Kennedy smiled to herself as she followed. The office was quiet except for the hum of the overhead light and the soft scratch of Kennedy's pen gliding across a clipboard. Outside, the hospital had gone still. The halls were quieter now, footsteps fewer, voices low and tired. It was late past 9. Most of the staff had gone home, the floors dimmed for overnight. But inside Dr. Monroe's office, the tension hadn't dimmed at all. Elias sat behind his desk, sleeves rolled to the elbows, one button on his shirt undone now. His tie had disappeared somewhere between the fifth patient and the drain removal, listening to Mr. Grant flirt with Kennedy. His posture had relaxed just slightly, his body heavy with the day. Kennedy sat across from him, one leg tucked under the other, coat folded neatly beside her on the armrest. Her curls were falling out of their tight bun, a few curls kissing her jaw. The glow from the small desk lamp made her skin look like bronze warmed by candlelight. She looked tired, but not ready to go. "You've got good instincts," Elias said suddenly, eyes on the folder in his lap, but voice low. "You caught that arrhythmia faster than 2 of my residents would have." Kennedy looked up, surprised by the compliment. "Thank you." He didn't say anything else right away, just nodded a little, like he regretted saying it out loud. Like giving her anything more than direction was too risky. She shifted in her seat, watching him as he flipped a page and reached for a pen with his left hand. His right hand rested flat on the desk, curled, still familiar now. He didn't hide it from her like he had before. She noticed that. "Does it hurt?" she asked softly. He looked up, not angry, just quiet. "Sometimes." He didn't elaborate, but that was the most honest thing he'd said all day, and it settled between them like a hell breath. Then his phone buzzed. Once, twice. The name on the screen made his lips press into a thin line. Yvonne, mobile, he hesitated, then answered. "Yeah." Kennedy looked down at her notes, pretending not to hear, but her ears sharpened with every word. "Are you coming home for dinner?" Yvonne asked, her tone already brittle. "I'm working late." Rounds ran over. A long pause. Then, "Do you even know what today is?" Elias blinked, looked at the clock. "It's the 5th. "Yeah, and?" "I don't have time for this, Yvonne. I'm not doing the riddles and guilt trips tonight." "It's my birthday, Elias," she snapped. "My birthday." Kennedy froze. The air in the room went thick. Yvonne hung up without waiting for anything more. Elias exhaled hard through his nose, tossed the phone onto the desk. His eyes drifted to his hand, his ring finger bare, the tan line faint now, but still there. He rubbed it once with his thumb, then dropped both hands into his lap, jaw tight. Kennedy didn't say anything right away, but when she spoke, her voice was soft. "Come, it's okay that you forgot," she said, not looking up. "You're a busy man, and you're human." He glanced at her, surprised by her lack of judgment. Her eyes met his, warm but unreadable. She leaned back in her chair, expression smooth. "You should surprise her with flowers," she said, smiling gently. He shook his head, slow, like he didn't believe in that kind of redemption anymore. "I've got things to do. Rounds to prep." Kennedy tilted her head. "She is. You can worry about the other stuff tomorrow." He didn't answer that. Instead, he stood, straightened his shoulders like he was resetting his armor. "Go home, Miss Rhodes." But she didn't move. Just sat there in the chair like she decided this was her office now, too. "No." He raised an eyebrow. "I'm staying," she said, grabbing the empty coffee mugs from the edge of the desk. "You're busy, remember? Somebody's got to make sure you don't fall asleep in here again." She stood slowly, giving him just enough of a view of her waist, the curve of her hips under that form-fitting pencil skirt. She didn't look back, just walked toward the door, curls swaying, heels soft against the floor. Elias watched her go. Couldn't help it. And when she disappeared into the hallway, his lips twitched just slightly. A smirk. Barely there, but real. The scent of coffee hit first, warm, dark, with a touch of vanilla creamer. Kennedy stepped back into his office like she hadn't just refused to leave, 2 steaming mugs in hand, and a glint in her eyes like she knew exactly what kind of line she was towing. Elias looked up from his desk, one brow raised, lips parted like he might say something. But then she handed him the mug without a word and sat back down, legs crossed slow, curls brushing her shoulders, and he decided silence might be the safest option. They sipped in quiet for a few moments, their voices drowned beneath the low hum of machines outside and the distant click of wheels on linoleum. The office lights buzzed above them, soft and warm. It almost didn't feel like a hospital anymore. It felt like something else. I need to grab some supplies for tomorrow's case, he said after a long stretch of quiet. Come with me. She didn't hesitate, just stood, grabbed her coat, and followed him down the hallway. The surgical supply room was small, more like a walk-in closet with shelves stacked high and the faint sterile smell of latex and iodine lingering in the air. The overhead light flickered once before settling into a steady glow. Elias reached for a few items on the lower shelf, murmuring the checklist under his breath as Kennedi scanned the room with curious eyes. You ever forget something on purpose? She asked softly, her back to him. He paused, glancing over his shoulder. No. She murmured, stepping further inside. The space was narrow, tight. Every movement brought them within inches of each other. She reached up for a box of surgical gloves, fingertips just grazing the edge. It was too high, but she didn't say anything. Just stood on her toes, straining slightly, body stretching upward. The moment started unraveling fast. Another box shifted above her reach, leaning toward the edge like it was ready to tumble. Wait, Elias said sharply, stepping in. He was behind her before she could react, his chest brushing her back. One strong arm sliding up past her shoulder as his good hand grabbed the gloves and pressed the box back into place. Kennedi froze. Her breath hitched. She turned slowly, still close, and there he was, right in front of her, towering over her. The space between them disappeared. She could feel the heat rolling off him, see the sharp angle of his jaw, the way his mouth parted just slightly as he looked down at her, his eyes darker now, hooded like they were seeing too much. For a second, just a second, he leaned down. Not much. Barely. But enough. Enough that she tilted her head up, lips